Join me on the Business Immigration Benchmark, where I tackle all the immigration and global mobility challenges head on and provide direct, practical solutions. Follow us on Spotify and join the conversation.
My name is Kristen Faison. I'm again based in Bowie, Maryland. Been in the mobility industry now for about 15 years, worked across a number of different company sizes and industries, and really happy to be with you all today. I mean, I think, as Andy said, the space that we live in, one of the reasons, at least for myself, as to mobility for as long as I have, is that, it's I never have the same day twice, and it's never a dull moment, right? And so with that comes the need for us to always have the ability to adapt, to change, to pivot and shift quickly, just given the numerous things that are thrown at us, whether it be from an internal standpoint with our companies, whether it be external factors that are fully outside of our control, and how that may impact how we're, facilitating our program and best able to effectively manage and support our employee population. When I think of the concept of change mobility and how we can, one of the things that we can do to ensure that we have the ability to deal with change and being agile. A couple of weeks ago, I attended a mobility conference and I heard Alan Stein Jr. speak. I don't know if those who may be familiar with him, he's a pretty well-renowned coach. And one of the things that really resonated with me, he said, is that in his teachings is to never get bored with the basics. And I think it's so pivotal to us as mobility practitioners when it comes to our programs, to never get bored with the basics, ensuring that, the foundations in which our programs are built are steady, in order to ensure that, as things go on, we can in fact shift and sway, and it doesn't negatively impact, what we're doing on a day in and day out basis. So whether that's, having the ability to effectively report out on your population, if there's a change from an immigration standpoint, I'm sure, many of us are well familiar with the H-1B proclamation in the United States that was, issued back in September. How I think most of our programs were able to respond to that and communicate with our employees was having good data, right? Which is at bare basics that we need to always ensure that we have intact in order to, again, effectively manage our programs.
So my name's Diane Kudo-Fouts. Thank you so much for including me on this call today. I really appreciate it. I've been in the mobility space, I started off with U.S. immigration over 24 years ago. I literally started doing U.S. immigration 3 weeks before 9/11. So for me, change is part of the role. Like Kristen, it's also part of the reason why I've been engaged in mobility for so long. You include people, there's always going to be different factors, even if you see the same case over and over again. So the reality is it's never the same day twice. And I've embraced it, right? Change is growth. So, with that said, also I'm a history major, so I look at it from a historical background and looking at it from the perspective of, okay, we knew last November that there was going to be a lot of change coming up this year. So I try to preemptively manage that change. I feel very blessed to be working for a company whose tagline is build for change. So everybody's already on board with that mindset, and then working within that mindset, learning what my barriers are. So what the business is willing to do and how to maneuver within that business model for all of our employees in an equitable way. So remaining agile is, I think, is imperative to remain afloat in this changing time.
My top tip for someone who's moving individuals to the U.S. would really be to Don't make assumptions that it's easy to integrate into the US culture. I think a lot of Americans can think that, oh, it's America, it's easy to integrate into, everything's easy to figure out. But what I've found from my experience is it's not easy, and it is very different from a lot of countries and a lot of cultures. So make sure that you're providing your assignees with the right resources to really be able to get settled and integrate into the new location, because it is much more difficult than I think any of us would assume.
The relationship between HR and mobility is absolutely essential and critical. And it's been something that in my career, I've really advocated in keeping that connection. Sometimes it's requiring, being the one to actually knock on doors and break down those barriers. But it's absolutely critical that we are really a one HR, and we're working really closely together, and we understand what programs and strategies are putting in place and the impact that might have on employees that fall under the global mobility policy. So I think continuing to really strengthen those relationships is critical. I'm thinking about the recruitment organization and how important it is to work with them as they're trying to find talent around the world, and helping them understand the immigrations or the implications and the limitations from an immigration perspective, and trying to get those candidates, particularly in a current coronavirus environment, and probably for a number of months still to come. So it's really important that we're in really tight connection and understand what's happening from a recruitment perspective. Obviously, with payroll, as we're trying to set up individuals working remote from new locations, ensuring that we have payrolls in place in those new locations and countries is also really critical, as well as really not just connecting and very closely staying in touch with the broader HR community, but I think other departments and teams outside of HR. And one that comes to mind really closely is the risk and security teams, as well as the tax team.
Okay. So we are the support structure to the business to enable them to achieve their day-to-day activities as well as their long-term strategic goals. We do this by identifying the feasibility of a relocation, consulting with them to build up a ideal package for an individual based on their circumstances, based on the business needs, ensuring that it is within the business's budgets. And by doing this, we're enabling the business to get their key talent to the right locations at the right time.
So that's the challenge. Having everyone, both employee or applicant to position to your company, on the same page on what is happening to your global mobility program, or if you're starting a global mobility program. So it's really balancing both expectations.
One tip to moving to assignees to the Netherlands is make sure that you meet the criteria that's put out by the government. The government is very clear on what they expect and what they need. And so to do the homework first about what the criteria is to make sure that you meet the criteria. And also, there's a lot of documentation that has to be submitted along with an immigration application, a highly skilled migrant application to the authorities, to make sure you do your homework of all the documentation you need to submit, the apostilles that are needed, when the apostilles can happen, the translations that are needed. It's a lot of documentation, but it's totally doable. It's totally achievable.
So one top tip is hard because there's so many great tips that you could give to someone who's moving. But I think for folks who are going on assignment or relocating, it's really important, the aspect around the family support and who the family is and who's moving with them. And I think you just can't underestimate the importance and the success of that. So whatever kind of support you can provide for the family, including your furry family, I think is critical to success.
Global mobility is the enabler that helps talent acquisition, fills the gaps in resources where we need talent across the globe. Without global mobility, talent acquisition would not be able to facilitate a mobile workforce in order to support the need for talent that we have in all of our different business sections across the.
When work is being performed, how work is being performed, and what work is being performed, then these solutions are not always, but sometimes very tightly connected with mobility. And that can offer solutions as to partially working from home, home or work or compressed work weeks or shift work or work sharing or episodic remote work or virtual assignments. There are a lot of different solutions out there that could meet objectives, and mobility is the tool then in that toolbox to offer the solutions, and then also going forward after the solutions have been decided on to implement them, to align them, and to operationalize the solutions. And so mobility can actually grow in this field and take on additional challenges that were traditionally maybe not existent.